Alright guys, so this video is going to be a bit different because I'm going to be showing you a tool that I have found recently, and it really came to me at the right time because the past few weeks I have been working on a project of mine that when I started I thought it was way beyond my league. But now fast forward a couple weeks ago and I actually managed to solve most of the problems I initially had, and now it feels so good that I managed to do them. And if you have ever had that feeling before, you know what I mean. And one of the things I struggled the most on my project was creating my own Git server and implementing custom hooks for Git events. Now, like most of you, I've been using Git for a long time, but I've never really understood how it works at a low level. And so that was a barrier when having to implement stuff on my own Git server, right? And during these weeks, I've come across a tool that helped me the most in this journey. It's like a guided learning platform in the style of you build your own Gits from scratch or you build your own X. This not only made me learn Gits better and how it works behind the scenes, but it actually improved a lot my Go skills because you can choose your own language here, you can do it in Rust, on Go, whatever. But when working with this problem, I was working a lot with bytes and byte transformations, and that really helped me understand a bit more that because I struggled a bit there, and I feel I'm way more proficient working with bytes. So the tool that I'm talking about, which is this one here that I'm using and that I'm going to show you on the video how we can actually go along and implement something like this. It's called CodeCrafters, and I'm not sponsored by them or anything, so you can go here on your own agenda. But one of the things that I must say in my videos and to my community is that learning by watching will only take you so far, but if you pick yourself up and go about doing the hard work, building stuff, struggling, after you learn, you'll learn way more. And this is that kind of style because here you are given some instructions and then you have to read the specs and do all of that research yourself, and then you can actually implement. And what happens is that when you submit, there are some tests that are run against your code, and then you get feedback and you can improve on it. But this is like way more intuitive than just watching a video and copying your solution. But in this video, we're going to be building parts of Git from their platform. I don't think there's going to be enough time to cover everything. But if you feel at any point of the video that you want to build yourself, I'll leave a link in the description below with the 40% discount for you to use. So it's just a referral link. And also I must say that some of the courses here they have, I'm going to show you really quick here the catalog. So these are the courses they currently have, and some of them are free depending on the month, I think. But for example, this Git one is paid. But if you want to go ahead, you can actually follow the spec yourself. So I'm going to leave this link as well in the description because we're going to be referencing to this file a lot. This is how we're going to actually learn how Git works behind the scenes. We're going to work a lot with Git objects. And also you can actually build from here, and then the test suites and the solutions that they provide, that CodeCrafters provides, are actually open source. So you can just check your code against the solution and see if you're on the right path. And yeah, and if you're like me and you struggle to find ideas for projects to build, I think that this catalog is pretty cool because, I mean, you can just go ahead and pick an idea and build it yourself. But yeah, without further ado, let's actually get started. So here I have just passed the first step, which is just to set up this repository. We have these files, this is when it's going to work, and this is just some infrastructure code and some Go environment stuff that we need for CodeCrafters. So the first step, we actually just need to uncomment this code. Yeah, so basically this is gonna be the git init. So whenever you do on your console git init, I could do git init on your console, this is how you can initialize a repository. So we're gonna implement that command here, but that is gonna be pretty easy because all we need to do is uncomment this. And from here we can actually get started. Let me delete these imports. This one here as well. So if you take a look at the code, what's gonna happen here is that we are receiving a command from the argument. So we're going to use this command like so, like there's going to be, we can for example do go.run, and then we have the command and arguments. But the first one that we have is the init, and what it does is it goes over these files and it's going to basically create the directory for it. And then it's going to also create the refs. And this is pretty much what it does. So let's go ahead. And what we need to do is just commit this code to CodeCrafters. So let's do git add all, git commit, and git init. I'm just gonna push, and when you push, basically gonna have a hook from their server. and it's going to run some tests to it. And as you can see, all passed, and we have some confettis. Let's get to the next stage. And here we are starting the real work here. So we need to read a blob object. So in this stage, you'll add support for reading a blob using the git cat file. So this is the command that we're going to be building. And to deal in this challenge, you need to deal with git objects. I have this link here already. So these blobs are basically where we are storing the file data. And they just store the contents of the file, not its name, nor permissions. And there's going to be trees. We're going to be working with trees as well. And then at the end, commits, which is going to be an integration of all of these together. And all git objects are identified by a 40-character SHA. As knownable as object hash. This is an example. And all of the objects are going to be stored here on the .git objects. So if you go into your code, you're probably not going to see this, this folder. So one thing you can do, on VS Code at least, is add this property here and set it to false. This one here, basically it's gonna include the .git. So for example, this repository here, which is the CodeCrafters one, and then we're gonna create our own. So we're gonna be working with this kind of files here inside the objects. This is the kind of hashes that they are talking about, and we're gonna be creating them and reading from them. So each git blob is stored as a separate file in the git objects, as we already have seen. The file contains a header and the contents of the blob object compressed using zlib. And this is the structure. So we have the type name, a size, and then here we have a null byte and the contents of the actual file. This is here an example, so an hello world. And then the cat command. Let's see what we need to do. You'll do this using multiple plumbing commands we'll counter in this challenge. So this is how it's going to be used. So you're going to receive a P and then a SHA. So to implement this, we'll need to read the contents from the blob object from the store and decompress using the zlib. And then we extract the actual contents and then we print to the outputs basically. Okay, I think I've got, and if you're stuck, you can just click on the code examples and you can see suggestions from people, but we're gonna avoid trying to use that as much as possible. So let's go ahead and implement the git cat file. So I think I'll just add here a case for the cat file. And then what I like to do is I would like to move these comments out to a new folder. So I'm gonna call this commands, it's gonna be on the main. And basically these commands, I'm just gonna call this cat file. And I'm going to create here a function that is going to receive, a hash. I'm going to call it just a SHA. And I think it's going to return, basically the way that we pass this example is by printing to the console. So I'm going to make this command actually return the output. And then here, I'm going to print it on this level. Because that way, this file just handles the commands itself and doesn't care about the outputs. And then the arguments, this is going to be like this. So it's going to receive 1, 2. So the third argument is going to be the modifier. So we can do this, I think. This is going to be a string. So let's run the code and initialize the repository here. Alright, so we have the repository. So we created the heads, which is the reference. This basically means where is the current head. So it's going to be main. And then this is going to be empty, but we're going to have some objects there. I actually thought that it would be better if you started with the create blob, because there we could have a blob that we could actually use to read. But well, let's just follow the instructions and see if we can actually land where we want. So if you check here the documentation, for example, here we are running the cat file with a hash, and then we basically just return the contents of the file. And if you remember how it was, the file, we have the blob, the size, and then the content. So we basically have to discard everything and just get the content from there. So we're gonna need to do some slice operations here. but the first thing that we need to do really is read the file. So we need to do some file reading, and then we just parse it and decode it with the zlib as well. So I think it's pretty easy, this one. So the first thing is that I'm gonna do the file path. Let's do file path dot join, and basically I'm gonna join with the dot git. This is where we have on our objects, and then here what we do is that, so the way that Git stores these files here, I can just show you here actually. If you go to objects or any repository, you can see that the first two characters, it's going to be the folder, and then the rest is going to be the file where the object is stored. So all we do is that we get the first two characters, and then the rest is going to be the, now basically we're going to read the file. So let's do os.read file, and we're gonna have some bytes from here. We pass in a file path. I'm gonna handle here the error real quick. So now that we have a size of bytes, all of this is gonna be zlib, so it's gonna be compressed, it's gonna be gibberish. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and initialize the readers for the zlib library. It comes with Go, which is awesome. So we can just do new reader and pass in the bytes. Yeah, because if you check this out, this receives an IO reader, so we need to make sure that we convert those bytes to readers. So let's go and make a new reader and pass those contents. I'm gonna handle the errors. I'm gonna make sure that I close this. So what I'm gonna do, I may think, yeah, I could create like this. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like this at the end, but let's go with it. io.copy. It's going to copy that into the buffer. So let me buffer the reader, and I'm just going to do this in line like so. And if there's an error, we just stop the program. And now this returns the amount, right? Yep, we don't care about this. So we have the bytes, we have the buffer already filled, hopefully. And then we can just return the buffer, but we need to convert it to bytes. But if we convert this to bytes, what's gonna happen is that we're gonna return all of this, and we actually just want the contents part. So everything after the null and the DOM bytes. How can we do that? All right, so let's do the bytes.split n, and let's put the buffer here. And now we need to check the null separator. So this is, we're gonna split the bytes at the null separator, and the null separator, I'm gonna create a constant here, or a variable, and I'm just gonna call it null sep to this. And now go ahead and use this constant, because we're gonna use this a lot in the codes. And then I'm gonna do this, and then we just want the what's after the null separator. So it's the second one. How it's this? It's split n, and hopefully with this we have everything. So we are printing to the console the hash. So to finish this feature, let's do a cat file. Let's commit our changes and see the tester run and see if we have passed. We got an error. So basically, reading this file, it could not open it. I see. So the problem was very easy, because yeah, I just misspelled the objects. It happens. It happens. So let me just do a git commit amends. No need to create a new one. And then I'm just gonna do git push force. And I think it's gonna work now. Awesome. So I think this step is done. We got some confettis as well. And now we go to the part where we can actually create the blob object ourselves. So we can actually create and then read and see if it's working. So basically what you're going to create is going to be this object. So we're going to be reading a file from our directory. So this file is going to be created into a hash. So what's going to happen is that we get the contents from this file, we read it, and then we create some sort of metadata storage. So it's going to be this blob, which is going to be of type blob. Then we get the size of this content here of the command.go. And then here we put the contents there, just straight up there. Then the next step we need to do is actually convert this to a zlib. So we need to zlib it. Basically, if you think about it, it's the inverse process of what we have done here to read it. Since we're here, let me change the name of this to reads blob objects, because I think it reflects better what it does. And here they have a very important note that although the object file starts with zlib, the SHA hash needs to be computed over the uncompressed contents. So I'm going to look at this in a bit, but for now I don't need to worry about it. So let's get started on this one. And the name of the command is going to be hash object. So let's go here to the main and create a new case. And here we're going to also return hash, so we can just do hash object. And we're going to be receiving, I think it's the same structure. We have a modifier. And then we have the file. We don't care about the modifier right now. I don't think that they test that. If they do, it's very easy to handle. So here I'm going to just drop this function. It's going to receive a file path actually. So this is going to be the file path of the uncompressed of the actual file in the repository, and then we're going to return slice of bytes. And because I'm going to call this create blob object because we have created this reads blob object, so I think it makes sense to keep it consistent. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is again read the file just like we did below. So let's read the contents of this file. Now that we have the file path, it's very easy. I'm going to copy this error handling here. Now that we have the contents as bytes, we need to create a new buffer because we want to start writing to that buffer to create our structure. So this is going to be the structure. So we want to create this here and we want to create into bytes. So let's do that. So I'm going to create a buffer here, bytes.new buffer. Then I want to put into the buffer the first type. So it's going to be the blob. I'm going to just outcode it here. And then after the blob, we want the size. So I have just left here this space to nfmt.addStringF. And here is going to be the value of the length of the contents. So that's why we read the contents in the first place. And now we also need to do the null bytes. So we can do that with just write bytes. I really like this interface, by the way. It's very cool that you can just write string, write bytes, write wherever you want. It's very declarative. I see there's multiple ways of doing it as well, but this is a little bit more verbose, but I like this. It's declarative at least. And then at the end, we write the contents. Let's do write. This one receives bytes and we have bytes. So let's send this. And this should be it. So the function is working. This is going to be create blob objects. And I'm going to print. Let me just do this then. Buffer.string. So let's, for example, try to hash the main.go. And here we get a huge string of unreadable stuff. But here we actually get the main.go. And here we get the blob. This is the size. And here it starts the content. And this string here is the actual representation of those bytes. So we need to do something about that. Let me just delete this. So we are on the right path, but not quite there. Because the next step we actually need to do is create the folder, the file, and just read to that file. Write to that file and we're done with it, and then return the actual hash and not this. So let's actually start by handling with the hash. So I'm gonna do the sha1.new. We need to import it, and then we can just write to the buffer.bytes. So the reason that I'm doing this before encrypting it, it's because of this note here. So if you remember, we need to do this before the compression, otherwise it's gonna mess up everything. And here we get the sum, so let me just do sha.sum. And here we actually get this, we can just return it. And if we actually test it again, you can see that we get 40 character SHA as we want. And the next step is that we actually need to go here, objects, and create the file and the folder. So very simple here, I just have the directory, so it's going to be the objects, and then we have the encoded hash sum. So this is going to be the first two characters, just like we learned before. And then we create everything, and then we do the rest for the file as well, just like so. And so the last step that we actually need to do is compress everything. In this case, we actually need to write, and we saw how to read. So it's not much different from that. Here we pass in the new file. How is this? It's new writer, not writes. Then I'm gonna close the writer, but what's the error? It only returns 1, so there's no error here actually. And then we just defer and close the... And with that, I think it should be it. So here we just do the compression after we get the SHA. So let's actually try this out and see what happens. So if you go to objects, there's this folder 82. And if we actually go ahead and get the file with the last command that we did, so I'm just gonna copy this hash. This should work, and it doesn't work because the command is wrong. It needs a modifier. I'm just gonna write anything here, and it still doesn't work. So I think this is gonna fail the tests. Basically, the array is running out of bounds. So what happens if I print the 0? So it doesn't print anything. So something is wrong here because it's not splitting correctly. All right, so I see the problem, so I'm completely dumb, and I forgot to actually write to the file here. So I create a new writer, but I never write the buffer to the writer here. So I just need to do this here. Well, it happens. It happens. And I can just do this. And now let's actually run this again. Actually, we need to run the object again because this object here is corrupt. It's bad. So let's do the whole process from scratch. I'm gonna hash this, copy this one, and I'm gonna pass this into the cat file. And we should have back the contents without the header. So yeah, we didn't have the header, we just have the content. So I think this is working, but let's check the CodeCrafters tests to see if this is actually working. I need to do this here because there are 2 repositories on these directories. So this is going to be the reads, the create objects, create blob. Let's push this and hope that it works. Boom, there we go. First try, beautiful. But yeah, I think we're gonna end here because this one is gonna take at least 20 minutes more. It's a bit more complex. But let me know if you guys want to see more of this style of videos where you're gonna build a solution from scratch and I guide you through how I do it myself. So yeah, just let me know and we can have that made. And before you go, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I'll leave on the description below as well the Discord community. So if you want to join a community with like-minded people, make sure to join in below because there is a lot of value there. And see you on the next one. Bye bye.